Okay, I'm James Hall Adams Jr., and I just wanted to give you some background on the church and the community. Around 1740, Scots Irish Presbyterians started to settle in this area on Fourth Creek. The creeks are numbered coming west from Salisbury. So this is the Fourth Creek west of Salisbury. It's back up here where it is now Statesville. It was known as the Fourth Creek Community, and they established a Presbyterian church there. But still, being a colony of England, they weren't allowed to call it a church. So they called it the Fourth Creek Meeting House. And eventually, as the population grew, there were so many people living out in the county, it was almost half a day's wagon ride to go to church at the Fourth Creek Meeting House. And so the congregation there decided to start several other churches, one of them being Bethany. And that was started in 1775 by my fourth great uncle, James Hall Jr. Okay, it's on this historical plaque down here. But anyway, the original building, well, they started meeting in the open, but the original building was right down there.
So closer towards the road?
Yeah, towards the road, sort of where I'm pointing beyond your car there.
Okay.
There used to be some cedar trees down there that were planted at the corner of it, but they've since expired, so we just sort of know the general area. And then I don't remember, around 1800 this building was built. This is the current Bethany Presbyterian Church. So let's go inside.
Yeah, it's been preserved pretty well.
Well, it's been through several restorations over the years. I can remember a couple of them when I was a kid and attending here. And then there's been a recent one where earlier restorations modernized it. This most recent one, they went back to the original as much as possible.
And you said that this structure was built in 1800?
It was about 1800.
About 1800.
I can find out from the church historian exactly what that date is, but that's about right.
Okay.
There is a bell. You can see the rope leading to the bell there.
Okay. Do you all still ring it?
They used to ring it when there was a larger congregation. They'd ring it to get people inside.
Kids outside playing.
Maybe on other occasions they still have it. Yeah. I haven't heard it rung lately. Mm-hmm. So this is the vestibule. Mm-hmm. This was added later. These two rooms on the side. Mm-hmm. This is a history room here, actually. Or was. Now maybe it's on the other side now. Let's see what they got over here. They've rearranged things. And that
I see that there's a compartment that's right here. Do you think this was built a little bit later? Like there's a couple of compartments.
There might be things in there, yeah.
Okay,
take a look and see what's in there.
No, he was curious about that little drop door, but I think it's to access the HVAC in there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they used to have some stuff in here. They got, here comes, this is Doris arriving. This is Doris Morrison. Mm-hmm. So these two rooms and this vestibule were added later. In slave times, there was just this one big box room. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I don't know the history for sure, but I was told when I was a kid that, so the whole community was Presbyterian. They taught the Presbyterian religion to their slaves. The slaves came to church. And I was told the slaves sat in this part back here, and that area was box seating. Mm-hmm. Family boxes. And then the slaves were sitting in a common area back here. Now, by the time that Reverend Sidney Merkland was called to be the minister, the Presbyterian Church has this requirement that their ministers be college educated. Mm-hmm. And this was inconvenient because they had to import them from Scotland. And so for this reason, they decided to establish a university here in the U.S. so they could educate them. They did so in Princeton, New Jersey, and that's where Princeton University came from.
Wow.
So, anyway, one of the early attendees to Princeton actually was James Hall Jr. And like I said, he established this church. But they called several ministers over the years, of course, and one of them was Reverend Sidney Merklin, who actually was from Scotland, and he had served in British Guiana, I think, and some other places before he came here. And when he came, at the time he came, the slaves were seated in this area back here. And there was a petition or screen or wall, if you want to call it. And you can see the remnant of it here. This is where it attached.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And so the wall went all the way across to the other side. There's a similar flat place on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so it would mean then that the pulpit was here because the slaves were back there. The minister couldn't see the slaves.
Do you think that was from an intentionality standpoint?
Oh, I think they intentionally did that.
Yeah.
And they had, at that time, I think they still had the, what's it called? It's basically a fenced, they had a fenced pulpit here where the minister would preach from. Anyway, Reverend Merklin told the congregation that he wanted to see all of the people he was preaching to. And so he wanted them to take that wall down and move the pulpit back here where it is now. And then, so that he could see all the people he was preaching to. And so at that point, they had this kind of, he made this proposition to the congregation, and he said, all who were in favor stand up, and almost all the congregation stood up. And then he said, anyone opposed, stand up. And if there was anyone opposed, they were too cowardly to stand up. And so the decision was made to tear the wall down. And that's in about 1853, 54, in the middle of the Civil War.
Wow.
And the slaves were moved back there. Okay. And then at the end of the Civil War, Reverend Merklin made a proposition to the congregation that I would like...
Recording stopped.
Oops.
Oh, yeah, you just have to hit this button right there.
Okay.
Oh, he muted himself.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Reverend Merklin made a proposition to the congregation that he would like to use the church one day a week to hold services for the slaves and to teach the slaves, because it was against the law to teach anyone to read or write,
right,
etc. And they were citizens now. They needed to know not only how to read and write, but how to own land and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so he wanted to teach them that, but the congregation was opposed to it. He said he would even serve for free if they would let him do that.
You on that one?
When the wall was here, the African Americans entered through those doors there.
Right.
After they took the wall down, I guess they entered behind the whites and sat back in the back there.
So where are we on our way to now?
We're on our way to Ebenezer Academy.
Okay.
As I was telling you earlier, the Presbyterian ministers had to be college educated.
Right.
And the normal education, if they had any, even the white people had any education, it would be just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Okay.
Okay, and they needed a much higher level education to enter Princeton. And so this is a preparatory school.
Okay.
And it was, well, there were several people involved in starting it and the early teachers, but the guy who taught here the longest was Hugh Hall,
okay,
who's my great-great-grandfather, and the person who owned Samuel Hall. There's a historical plaque about the academy there.
Yeah.
So it was started in 1822.
1822.
Uh-huh. That's when it was built. And there were two academies before that. Reverend James Hall Jr. started an academy called Cleo's Nursery over near Concord Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
And then he later had a School of Arts and Sciences on his farm, which is over on James Sowers Road.
Okay.
And then they started this one.
Okay.
Okay. So this is Ebenezer Academy here. As I said, this is the preparatory school. And you can see all the things written on the wall. This one I think looks appropriate for people leaving.
Okay. And so you can trace back from your lineage, pretty much all of your family members attended this academy?
Yeah, I can trace back to the original settler.
Okay.
Who came to the U.S. in 1720.
Wow.
And settled here in 1752 on the farm we'll be showing you.
Now, did the Presbyterian Church place people in different towns and communities to help build up, the number of individuals who were going into the ministry?
I don't think it was organized like that.
It wasn't like that. Okay.
I don't know for sure. I don't know any history on that exactly, but my impression is that here, because this was, an original community was entirely Presbyterian.
Right.
They organized everything, and Fourth Street Meeting House, as I was saying earlier, decided to create the other churches when it became so far for the people to come in from the farms.
Okay.
And so that's how the churches proliferated in this area.
Okay. Was it common practice for a school to be close to the church?
Yes, schools were started by churches. The Presbyterians believed strongly in education, and so almost all the Presbyterian churches had a school associated with them. So this one had this academy, which was a preparatory school. Maybe a lot of the others were more elementary schools to teach people how to read and write and so forth.
Okay. And so this was the original location, or is the original location?
This is the original location. This is the original building. This is it.
And so as it relates to the nucleus of...
Maybe I should close the door to cut down the noise.
But as it relates to the actual plantations within themselves, how far were they, or are they, if any are still standing, former plantations, from the church as well as the school?
Oh, they tried to have a church so that the people who were coming there didn't have to travel more than 10 miles.
Makes sense.
So there'd be a church every 20 miles, sort of.
Okay.
So this one...
When you would see this building as a child, would you all play in it? When you saw it, did anyone tell you exactly what it was? How did that, or did you just stay all the way away?
No. We didn't know the history. We didn't know the history.
I'm gonna get closer because my mic's over here.
We did not know the history.
Okay. You just thought of it as just being an old building, perhaps?
Yeah,
Okay.
just the Ebenezer Academy.
Okay.
But did not know that it was associated to the great-great-grandfather.
Okay, got you. Now, are there blood ties between you two as well?
Okay, now as far as we know, there's no intermarriage between the White Hall family and the Black Hall family, to our best of our knowledge.
Pre-emancipation.
Pre-emancipation.
What
or,
was it?
Or post-emancipation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no DNA connections from what you
No,
all know
as far as we're aware.
that you're aware of.
Yeah.
Okay.
But don't you think at some point the Black Hall family must have been on a plantation that was a Hall plantation?
Yeah,
Sure.
we're going there.
Oh, going there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, I'm Wavy Wilder. I am a descendant of Sam Hall, who was my great-great-great-grandfather. We are currently at Freedom Presbyterian Church, which is right over there. We are in the cemetery that is associated to the church. This is Sam Hall, who is my great-great-great-grandfather.
Okay.
This is his wife, Minerva Hall. So Sam was married to Minerva. They had a child named Margaret. Margaret had a child named Lily, who was married, I forgot who Lily was. Yeah, Lily was married to Alex Long.
Okay.
And then they had a child named Eulabelle, and Eulabelle is my mom.
Okay.
Right?
Nice.
Right. And so Eulabelle and my dad, Robert Mayfield, we lived about a mile, which was by the church that we were at.
Yeah,
we
Bethany.
lived on that road, Bethany Road. But this is my great-great-great-grandfather's wife,
Okay.
Minerva Hall.
All right, Jim, so we're at another location.
So
Can you
we're
let
on-
us know where we're at now?
Okay, so we're on Halldale Farm, and I'm going to show you the full extent of Hugh Hall's house. Okay, so the only portion that remains right is this portion here, which is the kitchen and dining room. You see the porch on this side?
Mm-hmm.
Originally it was an L-shaped porch that came out here. You see the red marks on the ground?
Yep.
And this indicates it was the porch. Then this room here was a bedroom,
Okay.
and this was a kind of common room or sitting room here. Okay. This of course is one story. The roof over this sloped up to a two-story part, which was here. So this was 2 stories, 2 bedrooms over, a bedroom downstairs, a bedroom upstairs on each side.
All right.
This is the central hall.
Now, real quick, Hugh Hall would be the son of
Alexander Hall.
Alexander Hall
Who was the
in
son
relation
of
to
James Hall.
Okay. So, James, Alexander, Hugh, and James was the individual who had you all's ancestor enslaved.
Yeah.
No,
No,
Hugh.
Hugh had your ancestor Sam enslaved.
Well, Sam was born as a slave to Alexander
okay, so he was passed
and
down.
inherited by Hugh.
Okay, got you. Okay, trying to keep it all in order.
When was this, the house that we don't see, when was it built?
Okay, well that's the remaining portion of it. But this house was built about 1830
Okay.
or probably about 1820. Because when Hugh Hall got married, you saw the grave of his wife over there. As I said, she had 45 slaves. She came from a relatively wealthy family. Her father was a member of the Constitutional Convention of North Carolina. So they were,
What was her maiden name?
Was that the Dobbs?
Nesbitt.
Oh, Nesbitt.
Maiden name was Nesbitt, Mary Nesbitt Hall. And so the Nesbitts were quite a prominent family. Now, the original settler settled down there on the creek, and there was log cabins down there. That's where Hugh Hall was born and raised. But he could not bring this high-class woman to such a poor-class place as that old log cabin down there on the creek. So he built an elaborate house up here. And we're standing now in the 2-story portion of the house. There were 2 rooms on the first floor and 2 rooms on the second floor. I am standing in the central hall. And then out here is the porch. There was a long front porch all along it. And there was a large chimney on each side, went up 2 stories, so there were 4 fireplaces in here. To show you where the original settlement was, if you look over this field, you can see that first row of trees down there.
Yes.
The first row of trees is along a ditch that diverts a branch to drain that land down there. And you see this timber line going down here.
Mm-hmm. On the right-hand side.
Yeah, on the right-hand side. If you look in that corner, that's where James Hall, the original settler, found a all-weather spring, a spring that had water all year long. And so he decided this was the right place to settle. So in 1752, he and his wife and their then 9 children, who had come down from Pennsylvania, settled there. And then he went to Rowan County to the agent of the Earl of Granville, who had been given this land by King Charles for his assistance in restoring King Charles to the throne of England. And Earl of Granville had an agent in Salisbury named John Holhock. And so he went to see Holhock. Holhock gave him a land grant, which is really a land lease, to this property, probably in 1753. And then they sent out a surveyor to survey it. And so we have a plat map that goes with the land grant that he had.
Okay.
And then by 1754, the French and Indian War had started. And the surveyor was no longer willing to go out and survey land out in the wilderness here. for understandable reasons.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. He may not have made it back.
Right. And so there were no land grants again until about 1856. And then James Hall got 3 more. And then more over the years out in Tennessee and whatnot, so he'd have land for all of his children.
You mean 1756?
1756. 1756 is when they started once again providing land grants. And he got 3 more land grants here in Iredell County, and then additional land grants in Tennessee, which were easy to get because it was all wilderness. And so he was getting land for all of his children to have places to settle. Let me get you some pictures that will help to understand what this place looked like. So Sam Hall was Hugh Hall's slave, but he was here at the time that Hugh Hall passed away. He was attending him at the time he passed away in one of the 4 buildings in the 2-story part of this house.
Okay.
You can see pictures of the house there behind that picture of my father when he was a child. And off to the right, you can see the back of the smokehouse.
Yep, that's right over there.
Yeah. And this is my Uncle Bill in front of the house. And then over here, I laid out sort of the floor plan of the actual house. That's the red spray paint.
Right.
So that's the front porch. And this is the hallway through the 2-story part of the house with a bedroom, with the rooms down, 2 rooms downstairs, 2 rooms upstairs. And there were chimneys on either end of this 2-story part. Here's some pictures taken about the same time, about 1915. Of the African Americans who were on the farm at that time. This is Aunt Emmeline here, and this is Caesar Hall, and I don't know who the other 2 are.
Is Caesar connected as... Okay, so that's
Caesar
Sam's
is
brother.
a brother of Samuel.
Okay.
Okay? And
you said this is around 1915.
around 1915.
And so Sam is buried in Iowa.
In Iowa.
And his brother is still here.
His brother is buried here. Yeah.
Okay.
So Caesar is buried here. So Caesar was a tenant on the farm after the end of the Civil War, apparently.
Okay.
And so this is the other bedroom. Let's look at these 2 pictures over here. So this is a picture of Aunt Emmeline.
Oh, wow.
Okay, this is Aunt Emmeline here, standing on this side of the chimney, because there's a chimney on either side, right? So this would be the porch over here. You can just see the corner of it, and then a window, and then the chimney behind her. Hugh Hall had 3 daughters, three daughters, a stepdaughter, and 3 sons. And you can see some of them here. You can see Hugh Hall's son in the back there. That's James King Hall. He was a psychiatrist and became the director of the state hospital in Richmond, Virginia.
Wow.
For the rest of his career. The lady to the right of Emmeline here,
Right here.
is my grandmother, Mary Elizabeth Hall. And then the other 2 are Maud Hall and Rena Hall.
Okay.
And so what was basically happening was that the family developed generational wealth over the years. And rather than be farmers, they became other things. E.A. Hall was a doctor, but he stayed here. His children, this was like in the 1890s, 1900 period. There was great opportunities to go west. And so they went to Wyoming and became very, very successful ranchers out there. That was Ralph Hall and Flake Hall, who are not shown in this picture. And so Aunt Emmeline basically raised the kids. And you see, you can imagine here, they're pretty endeared to her. Because she was effectively their mother or surrogate mother.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we see a picture like this.
Oh, and not just that one, but when you think about it, she's dressed differently here.
Yeah, and that's probably at a different age.
Yeah, so, it's just like, clearly there was some type of admiration for her.
Oh yeah.
All these years. And
She
what
was
year was she born? Do we know?
I do not know when Aunt Emmeline was born, but before 1900 for sure.
Okay.
Because of her age, she's probably 1890
Yeah.
or 1880, something like that.
Okay. It's fascinating. So Sam, their ancestor left in 1854 and ended up where?
Okay. So after Hugh Hall died in 1854, his wife sold all of the educated slaves because she was afraid of them. Caesar Hall was bought by a local farmer and remained here.
And that's the one that we just saw in the picture over there.
Yeah.
Which was Sam's brother.
For Sam's brother.
Okay.
Sam was sold to a plantation owner in western Tennessee on the Mississippi line. And so he was taken all the way out there. That's like 800 miles away or
That's
something.
a good ways away.
So he was taken away from his wife and family. And he lost connection with his wife and family, moved out there, actually got a new wife, started a new family. He was forced to serve in the Confederacy, but he also told the Union soldiers what the Confederates were doing. He was a double agent.
Yeah.
After the Civil War ended, the Union troops assigned a squad to him so he could return to the plantation where his wife and children were and take them with him to Iowa. And he moved to Washington County, Iowa, and became a farmer, lived there for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And wrote an autobiography, which I gave you a copy of.
Yeah.
So his wife did get to go with him,
Yeah.
but then she came back and was buried here?
No, that's his second wife I'm talking about. His first wife was buried here. She did not get to go with him.
I see.
Minerva.
Okay, so he remarried.
Yeah. She was the slave of a Mr. Clark. See, basically the African American families were all matriarchal back then because the children stayed with the mother. And the father visited only on the weekends if he could get a pass. Right? So you see the picture.
And Emmeline's parents were Aunt Emmeline.
Aunt Emmeline, I think she's either a descendant of Samuel or Caesar, but I don't remember. Does anybody remember that detail? One of the other descendants was here, seemed to know this.
Okay.
Remember hearing about her.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's descendant of some of the slaves on the farm, but which one exactly we don't know.
Okay. So
I
can we
don't
go take a look on the inside?
Sure. So let's take a look at what's left of the house. The firewood was kept under that porch out there and brought in through this door.
Okay.
That was the fireplace where they did the cooking. You can see the pot hook in there.
Yes.
And here are some of the utensils that they use that we have. This is for decorating the crust around the edge of a pie.
Okay. Are these original to the site?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And this is a spatula before Teflon.
Yeah.
Stirring spoon.
Yeah.
This is a butter mold for making a pound of butter. You pack that full of butter, you turn it over like this, and then that comes out and you can take it off the top and you leave it like
You have
the
your
design on
marks.
top of the butter.
So that's how that works.
Yeah. This is for mashing potatoes.
We just kept getting more and more innovative, y'all.
This is for mulling citrus fruit. And if you wanted to make individual butter patties with a fancy design on them,
We'll use that.
that's what this is for fancy dinners. What do we have here? This is another device for decorating pastries. And this is a storage jar.
Okay.
Now, please take one if you would like.
Yeah, I have it right here. So it looks like that there was just a descendants gathering here. Were you here for that? How was it?
It was nice. It was our barbecue in honor of Caesar Hall's. They came down to Caesar Hall lineage, but it was her mother.
Yeah.
Linda's mother.
Okay.
That was.
Linda Smith Saul's mother
Okay.
was murdered in New York. and every year they have a memorial for her.
Was her
And they
mother.
chose to have it here. So
Now, at some point of time, from a sharecropping standpoint, did this become a sharecropper's home or tenant farmer's home at any point?
no, this building was mostly here. The two-story part was torn down,
Yep.
and the wood from it was used to build the White House.
Okay, just right behind
Okay.
us. Yep.
But a roof was put over the one-story part, which was torn down to one-story roof. Another roof was put over that.
Okay.
The porch roof was extended to park tractors and other farm machinery there. And this building, the now missing part of the building,
Yeah.
was where grain was stored.
Okay.
And we also had a mill in there used to grind food for the hogs and chickens and dairy cattle that we had here.
So there was definitely no waste.
This is where the doorway was. A lot of these boards have been cut away. The doorway was actually right here. And that connected the kitchen behind me to the dining room in front of me.
Okay.
And so there was a dining table here. There was a corner cupboard located over here, a solid oak corner cupboard, so heavy that they didn't move it when they painted the wall.
Oh, wow.
They just painted around it.
Okay.
When they added this, changed to this from the white color to this green color. There was also something probably heavy over there. That
Yeah,
prevented
right
them
here. I
from-
see that they did move it. And there's the nails. So as
Yeah.
far as Emmeline, was she living on the property or was she living elsewhere?
She was almost certainly living down at the house where the well is.
Okay.
That house,
And Caesar
Was so
as well?
old.
Was Caesar living on the property as well?
I don't actually know, but probably
Okay.
some or all of the ones pictured out there were living on the property.
Okay.
And I remember the house before it burned, and it was so old it had to dated from before 1900.
Okay.
How old, I'm not sure, but it wasn't as old as to have been built before the Civil War.
Okay.
So it was probably built after the Civil War.
Okay.
Let's see what I was going to tell you. Oh, the other story is that, as I mentioned, Dr. E.A. Hall was the first medical doctor
Yep.
in the county. The first surgical operation performed in Iredell County was performed on the dining table right here.
Really? Yeah. In Iredell County, right here.
Interesting fact.
Yeah.
Man, that is definitely amazing. So that's going to do it for today's episode. We visited a lot of great places here in Iredell County, Ebenezer Academy, the Bethany Church, the cemetery where Minerva Hall is at, as well as this site right here, which is the family farm of the Halls. So if you're interested in North Carolina, hopefully this episode allowed you the opportunity to learn more about Iredell County, not too far from Charlotte. Look, if you like this type of content, please subscribe and share. Peace.